I grew up in the Midtown section of Gary. There's a place called the Small Farms, and it was called that for a reason because where I lived, there were no sidewalks, there were no paved streets. I remember as a kid, we had cows and chickens and hogs and those kinds of things. Yeah, right here in Gary, Indiana. I grew up in an environment which a lot of people may find it hard to believe now when they look at you and suppose that you're in a different state. But I grew up in a household where the matriarch and patriarch of my household was my grandmother and grandfather. In fact, there were 4 adult families in my household. So I know what it's like to sleep 7 deep. We didn't know any better. We thought everybody had to kind of compensate in that manner. And so it was a wonderful environment. I had 3 sisters, 2 brothers, but of course, if you cumulatively look at my household, counting my uncle and my cousins, then I probably had about 10 brothers and maybe 8 sisters and a couple of mothers and fathers. So it was not a typical environment, but we managed to make it nurturing. A typical day would actually have to get up and feed the chickens, get the eggs. If, in fact, we had to slop the hogs. We had dogs, of course, so you had to feed the dogs. And it just depends. If it was a school day, those things were done early. And when you got home, if there were any chores that needed to be done, of course they were done. You never told your parents you wouldn't do it. And if it was in the summertime, then that's when, because it was an area, it was a wooded area, as I mentioned, the dirt roads, so there's a lot of house cleaning that had to take place. You had to whack weeds, you had to pull weeds, I had to help my grandmother in the garden. I then had a wonderful childhood because we were able to get out into those streets. We played football in the street. We did things that others couldn't do with pavement and concrete as a hindrance to their playful activities. And so I was very, very pleased with the area in which I grew up. And of course, being in Gary at that time, it was an all-black community. It was also a community that was very well intertwined. I mean, when you talk about it takes a village, well, we had a village out there in the small farms. Everybody was everybody's parents. We played, we behaved, we conducted ourselves in a manner in which I think led to us, most of us, being successful adults. Now, we had our playful, youthful interactions, of course, and like any other kids, there's some things that we wouldn't tell our parents that we did. But all in all, it was a wonderful experience growing up in the small farms of Gary.